Hey guys, it is Wednesday morning and hope you did your Wake Up Wednesday activity. That mind trap is tricky. It's kind of a brain teaser puzzle instead of as much of a whodunit with clues. Well, it's still a whodunit with clues. Anyway, so first one to post the correct answer in the comments, I will mail you your favorite candy. So that's the treat. So yeah, we'll find out tomorrow. Anyway, so what I want to do today, if we were in class in person today, we would have been going over the review that I shared yesterday, Tuesday, in the Google Classroom. So I encourage you to kind of look at it, maybe get started on it, but I don't know what kind of workload you guys are managing with all your other classes. And I know this is a big, um, adjustment. So just don't worry if you haven't done it, that's fine. You might want to print it out and kind of follow along today. If you haven't, go back and print it out. If not, just kind of follow along. The questions are going to be up on the PowerPoint screen. I am not going to give you typed out answers. Okay, if we were in class, usually what I do is I go over the review questions orally and you guys write them down because you're big boys and girls and you need to have the ability to take notes and take responsibility for your own learning. Yeah, I'm not going to give you all the answers and then just let you copy them onto the test. So that's not the way it works. Or at least I'm not going to give them to you in writing. So anyway, so one important thing is hopefully you also, after you're done watching this video, I posted the answer key to activity 8.6 that I presented on Monday. On Monday, I did an example. I did problem 1, and you guys had to finish problem 2 and 3 on your own. Most everybody turned it in. I think I was missing 1 or 2 people that may have not finished it. So I'm still working on getting those completion grades taken care of. But I did post the answer key that you should see today, Wednesday. So you might want to go back and look and make sure you did. I only took a completion grade on it because it was new and we're not there in person for me to really help you with anything you got stuck on. So, but I did want to give you the answer key for it so you can see maybe where you went wrong, what mistakes you may have made, and be prepared in case you're asked to solve something like that on Friday. So Friday, you're going to be taking a test over chapter 8. So we've spent 2 months on chapter 8 practically, maybe not 6 or 8 weeks. It's been a while. And then of course we've been out of school for 2 weeks. So that didn't help. So this review that you guys got is super important. Okay. I already completed it. I'm going to go over the answers with you guys today, but you're going to be able to use that review if you want to write the questions down. But most of the information is in this packet. So you should have your blood basics packet out. Okay, because as I go through the answers to these questions, you're probably going to be able to find them in your packet and just kind of highlight them. So you can pause the video, find them, highlight them. If they're not there, jot the answers down. So you should be able to just use this and then maybe an additional sheet of scratch paper for anything that doesn't fit in here or isn't in here. So anyway, okay, enough about that. And I just went over all this, sort of, kind of. Okay, so we're taking a test on Friday. How are you going to prepare? First of all, make sure all the information in the need to know review are in your blood basics packet. This is the need to know review that I just showed you. Okay, need to know. I posted it on Tuesday. It should still be there. And just make sure all the answers to those questions are in here somewhere. And I'm going to go over those questions today. Study your graded homework questions. We had done some homework questions several weeks ago and we were still doing blood typing. I said, don't throw this stuff away until we take the chapter 8 test. Hopefully you didn't throw it away. There was a couple of lab activities, not all of them because I have some and I didn't get to see you to give them back, but I know I gave you back some graded things and I said, don't throw these away yet. There was a chapter 8 quiz that I gave back to you guys. So you have a lot of things that you can look at. And then activity 8, I think I might have written that down wrong. I said activity 8.5 and 8.6 in the PowerPoint there, but I think it's actually 8.6 and 8.7. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, well, it's 8.6 and 8.7. That's a typo in my PowerPoint slide. Basically, the 2 activities we did this week. Okay, those are good to look at as well. So if you look at all of that and anything you have in print at home, you're going to be able to use. Okay, so what's it going to look like? Okay, you're going to take it online individually. Be honest. Okay, obviously, I can't be there to watch you guys. I am going to send out an email to parents letting them know y'all are taking a test on Friday in my class, and they might want to make sure that you guys don't have your phones nearby, because you don't need your phone at all. Like, I would just go put it in another room so you're not tempted. Okay. You can use your notes, your homework. The way that I'm creating the test through Google Forms is I don't think you'll be able to go back. You'll have to answer the question and then go on to the next one, and you won't be able to go back. So it's kind of a couple at a time, move ahead, a couple at a time, move ahead. There can be some multiple choice, some true false, and then probably a little bit more short answer than normal. So you can type in the answers and submit them that way, and that will hopefully help you be a little bit more honest and making sure your answers are in your own words. So today's review is going to be super important. Okay, so the first 5 questions, and I didn't number it on this slide. The first 5 questions on this need to know that I posted on Tuesday is: what is blood? How long has blood been studied? What do red blood cells do? What does the immune system do? What do white blood cells do? Okay, it has been weeks since we talked about this stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this. Okay, and as I said, might want to pause it and make sure you have it in your packet, highlight it, and come back. So, okay, basically, what is blood? Okay, in the general term, and I'm not sure exactly how you may have it worded in your blood basics packet, but it's a circulating tissue that contains 3 types of cells: red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. Okay, so it's that circulating tissue. It's circulating through our body. Okay, how long has it been studied? This one is not in I made a little note to myself. This one is actually not in your notes. We just started, like I talked about it, but I only made you write down starting with in 1940. But we did talk a little bit about how way back at 2500 BC, the Egyptians were using bloodletting. Like, they knew there was something to blood and medicine and medical things. Like, they didn't know anything about blood types at the time, but they were actually starting to, thousands of years ago, even at 2500 BC, the Egyptians were playing around with studying blood and figuring out. So that would be number 2. What do red blood cells do? Okay. So those are the ones that are going to carry your respiratory gases. Okay. So like oxygen and carbon dioxide mostly. So just remember, it's the respiratory gases. What does the immune system do? Well, your immune system is there to fight foreign invaders, like viruses, like the virus that's ruining all of this for us, right? It detects if there's a foreign invader in the body, and it goes out and attacks it. Okay. Could be bacteria, could be viruses, but it also could be the red blood cell proteins from like another blood type. So if I'm like type O blood, and blood type A is introduced into my body, that A antigen, that A protein in those bloods, on the red blood cells, my body's going to go, whoa, foreign invader. We don't have the A blood protein in my blood, so it's going to attack it. Okay, what's the other one? I think that's white blood cells. So white blood cells are that's part of the immune response. They're the ones that are going to send out the antibodies to fight. So red blood cells are circulatory, but we actually use them for blood typing. White blood cells are immune system fighters, and we don't use those for blood typing because the proteins are not on them, but we do use them for DNA. Remember, we use the nucleus of white blood cells. Okay, so what did Dr. Alec Jeffreys do in 1984? He's the guy that when we were studying DNA, he's the first one to figure out that you could do a DNA fingerprint. He did it with paternity stuff initially, and eventually they figured out they could use it for crime. So it was when he discovered it, it was DNA fingerprinting, not a profile. The profile came later, but it was just called fingerprinting, and that was the one that had like the little bars that we would match up. What kind of evidence is blood typing? Is it class or individual? Okay, it's class evidence, because literally millions of people have type A blood and millions of people have type B blood, so it just narrows it down. If a blood type matches, does it prove guilt? Why or why not? No, just because the blood type matches does not prove guilt at all. Okay, if I am a blood type O positive, which I am, I'm O positive, and I'm a suspect, and they find A negative at a crime scene, I'm ruled out. But if they find O positive at a crime scene, It doesn't prove I'm guilty. It just proves like I'm not eliminated yet. I'm still a possible suspect. They need to go a step further and do a DNA test. Okay, Carl Landsteiner in 1901, he's the guy who discovered the A, B, and O blood types. And the way he did it was he's the guy that figured out that like blood wasn't mixing freely among people. They were trying to do transfusions and people were dying. So it was that those failed transfusions, if you will, that helped him discover the A, B, and O blood type in 1900 and 1901. How is blood type determined? And that should actually be in your notes about Carl Landsteiner. All of this should be in your notes so far, except the Egyptian thing. How's blood type determined and where are the proteins found? And I kind of mentioned this earlier when I was talking about red blood cells. Remember, red blood cells are the surface of the red blood cells or where the proteins are found, either the A protein, the B protein, or the RH protein. Okay, and blood type is determined by either the absence or the presence of any of those proteins. So that's important, that phrase, the absence or presence. The other thing that's important to know, remember, and highlight in your notes is it's an antibody antigen response, the blood type testing. So remember when we were doing like the lab where we had the fake blood and you guys were trying to get that agglutination reaction. You were trying to see, is the A protein in this blood, or is the B protein in this blood, or is the RH protein in this blood? And if it is, it would create that antigen antibody attack response and cause agglutination. And then you knew that that protein was present in that person's blood. And that's how you figured out their blood type. I'm going pretty fast. I apologize. Okay, more questions. What did Alexander Weiner discover in 1904? So he's the dude that discovered the RH factor, not 1904, I'm sorry, 1940. So for many years, almost 40 years, they just thought there was just, A, B, or O blood. But then they figured out the whole positive or negative thing. So that was the RH factor that he figured out studying rhesus monkeys, rhesus starting with RH. Okay, what's the most common blood type in USA? This should also be in your notes because you should have written down the percentages when you drew the little pictures. But it's type O blood, and 43% of the population has type O blood. Okay, so that was all the whole blood typing stuff. And then we took a quiz on it, and you should have your graded quiz. Most of these questions are probably on the quiz that we just went over. If they're not on your quiz, they should be in your notes. Make sure they're highlighted in both places or one or the other or something. Okay, so then the different characteristics of blood spatter. Then we start talking about blood spatter because that's the other way that forensics uses blood. So blood spatter, and the activities you did this week had you practicing point of origin, area of convergence. Actually, point of origin and area of origin can be used interchangeably. I really should just delete point of origin. So I apologize. I just realized I look really tired. Hey guys, I'm on like day 10 of no makeup. It's kind of glorious, but good thing my face is really tiny in the corner. I look tired. Anyway, so area of convergence, area of origin, what are some of the other things? Angle of impact, all those things that we practice in the activities this week. Those are things you need to be familiar with. What are spikes? What are satellites? All of this is in your notes. The spikes are the ones that are attached to the drop. So think of like a spike is usually attached to a weapon or an article of clothing or a car or whatever. The spikes are attached. And satellites are the ones that are not attached and they're out kind of floating. You think about satellites float in space. So that's how you can remember the two of those. Determining directionality. Directionality, remember when blood hits a surface, it has its initial impact and then it just keeps going and it leaves a tail. And so the tail points in the direction the blood is going. So you need to make sure you have that. Point of origin or area of convergence. Let's talk about that. That was when, and I was going over this. It's in your notes, but I was going over this on Monday in one of the videos. I hope you watched them. They were really helpful. I know there was a lot. Anyway, that is, let's see, how do I actually have that typed out in my notes? Okay, it's basically where the blood originated from. And you have to have at least 2 blood drops. And that's when you draw the lines and you see where they converge. And you draw a circle as small as you can that includes all the intersecting points. And that's where the blood originated from. That's your area of convergence. Okay, it's a 2D representation. The area of origin is that 3D one. That's where we can kind of figure out like, okay, where was it out from the wall? Like what was the distance and what was the height? Okay, and that's when we got into the whole tangents, law of tangents, and the two activities you did this week. Okay, so just be familiar with all of those vocabulary words and what they mean. Okay, what's the difference between blood-stained patterns, like the passive and cast off, and the relationship between blood velocity and spatter? And I'm going to I put the tables on the next two slides. So remember these slides that we talked about in class. If you need to go back and look at these, they're also in your textbook. Wait, I think I didn't put it in the slide. Okay, they're in your textbook. So, but they're also here as well. Just make sure, remember what cast off that's in, when like someone is maybe beating or stabbing, and it's that motion backwards that casts off the blood onto the wall or the ceiling. Transfer patterns, either with your handprint or fingerprint or footprint, you're transferring blood from one space to another. Your wiping is you're trying to wipe the blood off of something. Swiping is something's kind of just being dragged through blood. It's probably the easiest way to say it. The arterial, I think you guys get that. You hit an artery, you get the gushing, that up and down, that peak. Okay. Expired blood, that's when someone like coughs up blood and it comes out. And that's the one that gets confused a lot with gunshot. And a lot of you guys did your case studies on that. Not on that. A lot of you guys, the case studies you did, expired blood was kind of an issue or an arguing point. And then a shadow or a void is an area where you could tell something was there. An incident happened, blood was spattered, and then somebody removed the object, and now you have this empty space, which is also called a void. Okay, and then blood velocity and blood spatter, knowing these, you might not have put these measurements in your notes. I think the day we were taking notes, I said, just focus on an example that it's a gunshot wound, but make sure you know that high velocity is less than a millimeter. Medium velocity is between 1 and 4 millimeters, and anything greater than 4 millimeters is like a low velocity. So make sure you also have the example. Gunshots for high velocity, beating or stabbing for medium, and then just a drip or just like getting hit with a blunt object is going to create a little bit more of a drip, getting conked on the head, and that'll be a low velocity as well. Okay, let's see, trying to hurry through this. Okay, what blood spatter evidence is used for? Okay, and the reasons blood acts the way it does. Okay, so what blood is used for? Actually, I put that, hang on, my reading glasses. That is, it's on page 12 in your notes. We listed like 6 or 7 things. So look on page 12 in your notes. You should have things like find out where an assault occurred, find out the position the killer was during the attack, find out if the victim was walking or running, find out if the victims tried to avoid the blows by like holding up, like are there defensive wounds? Did it create a void? Determine if the victim died by suicide or homicide, how long the blood has been there, like is it dry or wet? And then this is not in your notes, but I want you to add this because all of these that I just listed, these like 6 or 7, and there's more. You can sum it up by saying blood spatter evidence is used to explain the events at a violent crime scene. I'm going to say that again, to explain the events at a violent crime scene. Okay, they're not usually blood spatters not at every crime scene. But if they do come in and there was a violent crime with blood everywhere, they are going to use blood spatter to try to figure out what happened. Okay, so that's important. And then after that, you can break that down into where was the person standing? Was it self-defense? All those things. But those are just part of that broader question of what happened at this violent crime scene. It's not every crime scene. Okay. If there was robbery and there's no blood, then they are not studying blood spatter. That question gets missed all the time. So hint, hint. Okay. Then at the very bottom of the packet, or this one that I posted online, there was blood type thought questions. Okay. I typed out my answers. So you got a young prosecuting lawyer was given the forensic lab results from a blood typing test. She found at the crime scene blood matched the blood from one of the suspects. The prosecuting attorney told the jurors that the crime scene evidence blood matched the blood type of the suspect, providing evidence that the suspect was indeed the perpetrator of the crime. If you were the suspect's attorney, how would you respond to the prosecuting attorney's statement that since the blood types match, then the defendant is proven to be guilty of the crime. So again, I think I used this example earlier. If, say, I am O positive blood, and I am the guilty party, and they found O positive blood at the crime scene, and I go to court, and the prosecutor says she's guilty because we found O positive blood at the crime scene. Hopefully, my defense attorney could say, no way. Okay, how can they argue that? You need to be able to explain that. You need to be able to say, no, O positive is just class evidence. Like 43% of the population has it. There's literally millions of people. She may still be a possible suspect, but this proves no guilt at all. I mean, this does not prove guilt at all. Okay, just includes me still as a suspect. Okay, so be able to use intelligent words and answer that if needed. If a lab technician used poor lab techniques in a crime lab, is it possible that an innocent person could be convicted and imprisoned for a crime? Describe examples of poor lab techniques that might produce erroneous results. Okay, so yeah, definitely. If they are mislabeling samples, they could get, different suspects' samples switched, and they could send an innocent person to jail. They could get some of their, if they're handling like blood found at a crime scene or any kind of object that's got DNA on it from a crime scene, and they don't like change their gloves or clean their tools, and then they get out the suspect's samples, and now they have contaminated tools or gloves or whatever, any kind of instruments they're using. And now they're getting crime scene blood into the suspect's blood, and they've now contaminated it. And then they can, anyway. So those kinds of lab mistakes, especially switching labels and not labeling things and contaminating samples, can send innocent people to jail, and it happens. Okay, and then the last one, or there's two more. Explain why a match of AB negative blood in both the suspect and in the blood found at the crime scene provides a higher degree of probability. This is a probability question. Okay, and you do have this in your notes too. It was, let me see what page. I had y'all write down a probability. It's at the bottom of page 5. There was a probability question on how you basically take the percentage of people who have that blood type and the percentage of people who have either positive or negative, and you convert those percents to a decimal, multiply them together. So, and you actually come up with the percent of individuals per thousand, which I don't think that's in our notes. So the example was AB negative blood. So AB negative blood, about 3% of the population has it. So that's a decimal of 0.3. And about 15% of the population has negative. So when you multiplied 0.03, I forgot the zero, times 0.15, and then multiply that by 100%, you found out that it was basically 5 people per thousand. Or it could just be, anyway, so you came up with 5 people per thousand would be AB negative blood. So in my example, when I was using the O positive blood, if I was the guilty party, 366 people per thousand people, 366 out of 1,000 people are going to have O positive blood. So like, that's not a very good probability that it's me. But if only 5 people out of 1,000 have AB negative blood, and I'm AB negative, and the blood at the crime scene is AB negative, there's a higher probability that I could be guilty. Still doesn't prove it, but it's a higher probability. So that's just really about probability. And then we talked about this earlier, why white blood cells are not used when typing someone's blood. Earlier, I mentioned white blood cells do not have the A, the B, or the Rh proteins on their surface. Only red blood cells do. But we do use white blood cells because they have nucleuses that we use to get chromosomes and have all the DNA in it. Okay, so the last thing that you need to make sure is those activities that you did this week, especially the one you did yesterday, which was Tuesday. And I just actually sent out a remind saying, hey, some of you haven't done this. There was a picture of a crime scene, and you had to figure out the angle of impact and the area of origin. They gave you length and width and distance. They gave you the hard data, but you had to do some inverse sine and use the tangents to come up with the area of origin. And then you had to come up with, based on the heights and the distances, like, what do you think happened? Who do you think maybe shot first? So I'm going to give you a scenario kind of like this and kind of like that one. It might even give you the exact same one, maybe. So make sure you have it done and done well. And you're going to have to make a few calculations and give a reasonable answer as to who you think shot first or what you think actually happened. Okay. So I think that's it. I know I talked really fast, but it's a video, so you guys can pause it. Again, you don't have to write all this stuff down. Probably 90% of it is in here if you took good notes. If you took good notes. If you didn't, now's your chance. Okay, because you'll have this, and I will probably take down this this video on Friday, so you don't get to do this right before the test, or try stopping the test and going back and looking. That's not gonna happen. Okay, you're gonna need to be super honest. I know you guys can do it, and let's see how we take our first online test. Okay, I'm sure there's something else I'm forgetting to tell you. If so, I'll tell you Friday morning before the test. So be looking for a short intro video Friday. Miss you guys. Love the pictures. Some of y'all got a little crazy on that Padlet pictures. Please put pictures of yourself. Like, Christian, that's so not you. And Noah, Noah Blackstone, is that Bradley in your picture? And okay, I do like the baby pictures of Noah Goines and Solomon, I think, did a baby picture. At least it's you. But let's, if I have a Padlet and I ask you guys to upload stuff, don't do anything that disrespects anybody, and I will just delete it. Okay. So anyway, you guys got this. Please contact me if you need help. I am here. I'm not going anywhere. All right. Bye, guys.